Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals, one of the most listened to and watched podcasts dealing with addiction and recovery, because we don't hold back. We even allow people to swear, although we don't encourage it, right? But these are raw stories about what's happened to people's lives. I'm Randall Carlisle. My guest host is Destiny Garcia. For some reason, we do analytics as to who listens or watches, and obviously the Utah area is the biggest audience. But coming in second place is a city in the Midwest, and they always come in second place, Columbus, Ohio.
Wow.
And
hello, Columbus.
Hello, Columbus. and nobody can figure out why, but they're there.
Maybe they have a higher population of addiction?
I don't know.
We should look into that.
They have a huge university, the Ohio State University, so I don't. Anyway, welcome. And you suggested our guest today, so I'm going to have you introduce her.
Yeah, thank you for coming. We have Triana Scarmella today. I suggested that we interview her because I love her story. She's amazing. What she gives back to our community is huge. And I think all the drug court graduates will know who she is.
So maybe let's start with the back end of your story, then we'll get to the positive side of what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I was born in California, Murrieta Springs, California. Both of my parents suffered with substance use and alcoholism. My dad actually died when I was 13 from his alcoholism. I bounced around from state to state, and I was finally adopted in Idaho at the age of 12. That's kind of really began because my dad died like a year later, and I didn't really know how to handle it. Before I was adopted, they were giving you one last visit, right? Like with your parents or this, and he was the one that I really wanted to spend my time with. My mother really suffers with a lot of mental health. My biological, let me clear that up because I'm going to be talking about two of them. My biological mother has a lot of mental health and suffered a brain traumatic injury, and so things were very unstable all over the place. We always hopped around from place to cars to RVs, like we were in and out all the time. And so when I finally got adopted at the age of 13, I moved in with a phenomenal woman. Her name was Julie Landreth. Unfortunately, I didn't know how to be loved. I didn't know how to have parents. I didn't know how to feel accepted. And so our story was really up and down. And finally, at the age of 17, I had a daughter. Her name is Leonie Rayleigh. And she started to take care of her for me about a year and a half after she was born. And we were very estranged for about 6 years, actually. We didn't talk, we didn't communicate. I would always call or try and leave messages and stuff, but my mom had decided to hold a boundary because I wasn't getting any better. And
you were using substances?
Correct, yes. From the age of, I started when I was 13 and until about 15, and then I kind of took a break. We moved to Cedar City out in the sticks. She thought that would help.
No drugs in Cedar City. I'll bet you could find some.
She wanted to get me away from Leonie's dad, really, if we're being transparent, and all the shenanigans I had found myself in. And we had moved to Cedar City, and then he followed me down there a couple of years later, and I decided to choose that unfound amount of love that I thought was there with him over a family that really cared about me genuinely. And so after that, I had Leonie, and I had moved her dad in with me, and it got kind of crazy and all over the place. And then I finally had found that I had some serious separation anxiety and didn't want to go to work, didn't want to do this. And so I ended up losing my home and asking my mom to take on my daughter, Leonie. It was back and forth between Salt Lake and Cedar City because I couldn't find jobs in Cedar City. There's only like really 3 places to work at there, and that was the telecommunications place, and Walmart, which I had got caught stealing from when I was 15, so I couldn't work there.
So they're not going to hire you. Here, let me give this back and now hire me.
Walmart.
And the hotels, which I already worked at those too. So my bright idea of restarting my life was coming back to Salt Lake. And boy, was that something else. I spent a lot of time in and out of hotel rooms trying to hold a job. I think my first job I got out here was like the Rocky Mountain Pie Factory, which I don't even know if that place is open still. And it was a temp job. And so I was working and saving money, and I finally had spent enough time away from my daughter. I wanted to go back and see her. During that time, I had signed a temporary custody waiver, which I was 17. I really didn't know what that was, but I was told it was to take my daughter to the doctor, things like that. And then I found out that my mom was moving to adopt her, and it kind of threw me for a really big loop, and it kept me going in my substance use for years and years and years, probably about 10 years maybe.
What substance?
Methamphetamines, okay. Yeah, and hustling, really, let's be honest. Like, the money was probably one of the biggest things to get away from, because it was such easy money to me when I thought about it, right? But really, it's not. You have to deal with all the drama, all the people stealing from you. You have to worry about your safety.
I mean, the lifestyle is an addiction.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And it was all I ever knew for a long time. And then I met my son's father, and that was a whirlwind. Like, we still really care about each other. However, we were not very well in a relationship. And I ended up getting pregnant with Legend in the summer. He's my 7-year-old son. So in the summer of, I want to say, he's 7 now, so I guess it would have been more like winter. I don't know. Let's be honest. In 2016.
Okay.
There we go. He was born in October of 2016, and I had been through a lot with Derek, and we were both abusive to each other. We were both stealing from each other. We were running away from each other, and not very many good times did we have together as when we were sober, or when we were using. And so when I got pregnant with Legend, I had a couple of choices. I could figure it out, and his dad ended up going to jail because he was running from everything under the sun. And when your other half's on the run, you're on the run. And so it was very hard to be on probation and be in a relationship with someone who was on the run. And I asked my probation officer, I said, this is where I'm at. So he gave me an ultimatum. He's like, you can turn him in or you can stay out. And I was like, well, I'm not turning him in. I don't do that. Like, that's not what we do here. So I ended up going to jail and put in the Atherton house. And it really did some good for me. I got to become like self-sufficient. I got a job. I got time. I started getting visits with my son, and I was successfully reunited with him. He was actually, I think I skipped over that whole part, but my son was taken from me at birth because I was on the streets using and had nobody to lean into. His dad was in jail, and it was really, really hard. My feet were probably the size of my boots, like, because I was pregnant and walking up and down the streets, just trying to survive, just trying to make sure I had a roof over my head every night, make sure I had food, a way to take care of myself. And during that time, I met some people that really helped and really didn't, because they ended up stealing from me, and so it was just like a circle of chaos. And when the night before my son was born, I had actually decided to go to a domestic violence shelter in Tooele County because that's where his dad was at the time. And my water broke the night before I was leaving. And I knew that I was not going to bring my son home, even though I had hoped. I knew he wasn't going to. When I was in the hospital, I was not treated very kindly. They actually, mind you, I've been up for a while, and they actually used that against me because I had finally slept after hard labor, and they had said that she was neglected and all these different things because I was asleep during that time. And when I woke up and I asked to see my son, he was not allowed to come to my room.
Wow.
And that was my reality check.
Boy.
I stayed sober for about 6 weeks after that, after Legend was born, and then I started hanging out with the wrong crowd again, and was using until he was about 4 months old. And DCFS sat me down and told me that if I didn't get my stuff together, they were going to be working towards adoption. And I was like, whoa, 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 I have a year. They're like, not if you're not complying. You have 6 months. And from that moment on, I got serious. I was able to hold boundaries with Derek. It was really hard because he was all I'd ever known, but I was in Atherton. I got moved into that's where I went to jail. So now fast forward back to what I was talking about in my ADD brain. This is when I had gotten on paper, I had talked to my AP&P officer, and he gave me that ultimatum and was like, you need to choose. And I chose to go to jail. And that's where we came up with Atherton.
What is Atherton?
Atherton it's like, they call it the halfway back house.
Okay.
It's kind of like Orange Street, actually, but it's for individuals who are on probation or have already exited prison and are looking for somewhere to get stabilized.
Okay.
And so
I've never heard of it either.
I've heard of it, but I just wanted you to explain it so that people know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was there for about 5.5 months. I got into sober living, like everything was going really good. And Derek had gotten out of jail, and we were trying to co-parent, or trying to, I wasn't trying to co-parent then. I was trying to be back with him, let's be honest here. And co-parenting comes later. He got into sober living, completed treatment, and so things were going really well. Eventually, I was granted back full custody of my sons, and we got an apartment. We were staying together. But we were just existing, right? Almost 3 years later, we were just existing, and Derek was very unhappy, and I wasn't very happy either, because all I did was work. I worked all the time, came home, prepared meals, cleaned the house. Like that was just like my cycle, my ever evolving cycle in that. And he came, and this is where things fell apart. He came home, and he was under the influence, and I held out for about 6 weeks, and there I was again, back in the same circle. But this time it was with my son. And fast forward, to a couple months before March 30th, 2020, we were fighting all the time. We were beating the crap out of each other. I broke, I don't know how many car windows on my own vehicle because he was driving off with it, right?
Been there, done that.
And my son had witnessed this all.
Mm.
And it really took me to a dark place with him myself, because I'd fought so hard to get him back. And here I was, putting a man and a relationship before my child, which I had done already with my daughter. And I knew something needed to change, but I didn't know how. And on March 30th, 2020, there was a gun that accidentally discharged in my house. And somebody, I won't mention names because I want to be respectful, but a close friend of Derek's, and he was a friend of mine, he died because of it. And we were scared, and we handled it all the wrong way. Everybody left. They moved him outside of our house, and I stayed and called 911 because I wanted him to have the best chance. But he did, unfortunately, die. And the scary part about that is it could have been anybody in that house. It could have gone, that bullet could have gone through the wall and hit me. It could have, my son was sleeping on the couch. It could have hit him. Like, any one of us could have died. And it was very, very traumatic and very scary, because I was sitting in an interrogation cell for like 10 hours. And they had posted it all over the news that it was gang violence, and because they were from opposite gangs, and it was something that really woke me up.
That would. Yes. And were you charged with something then?
I was. So originally it was just it was just
Obstruction.
obstruction. That's the word. Thank
I read
you.
the story.
Okay, obstruction of justice, and because I had lied and all these things, and eventually they had charged him federally with the guns that were in the home, and they charged me state. And so I was really blessed during that time. My really good friends, Matt and Whitney, bailed me out of jail. My son was placed back in the foster care system. And for 7.5 months, I was able to slowly but surely rebuild my life. And it was really hard. I got put, and this was all during COVID. So everything was shut down. Treatment centers,
Sure.
like everything was shut down. And so I called my case managers. I was like, what can I do? I don't want to just sit here and wait for things to open. There's got to be something. I asked about, before I knew it was Family Dependency Court, and it was actually rebranded into Family Recovery Court. I asked them about that. I asked about all these different things. And so I did treatment. I paid for treatment out of my own pocket for like the first 6 weeks, because I didn't know what else to do. And then eventually Family Recovery Court got in touch with me, and they were like, hey, this is an option for you, and these are the places you can go to treatment. Cornerstone. That's where I ended up, was Cornerstone.
Sure.
And I was in a 3-bedroom apartment with basically 10 people right off of North Temple for the first 7 months of my recovery. Right. During that time, I learned a lot about boundaries. I learned a lot about
what you needed through
yeah,
the years.
yeah. Oh
Yes.
yeah. I got put on a no contact with his dad, and that was like probably one of the best things that could have happened to me, because I really got to sit back and reflect on all of the pain, all of the trauma. I mean, there were good times too. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been together. We cared about each other. I still have a lot of love for this man, you know? And however, I know that I never wanted my son to see that side of his mom and dad again together. And so I had to really make a choice and move forward.
So did you go into Family Recovery Court?
I did. I got into Family Recovery Court, and I successfully graduated of June 10th, 2021. And it was great. I got put into Life Start Village after I was sentenced, because I should have been in prison. And I don't know why, but Judge Kendall took a chance on me, and he gave me a second chance, and he gave me 0 tolerance probation. And I was like, I've never been so happy to check into AP&P in my entire life. Like, never. I was like skipping in the door.
And Life Start's a nice place to live.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a really nice place. And I actually passed that up the first time because I was worried about where I was going to put my family. And this time it was about
You were worried about
me.
where the guy was going to go.
Correct. Yes. I was worried.
Boundaries.
I didn't have any.
Yeah. I get that.
And I had so much built up in me, and finally just moving forward, right? Like moving into Life Start. I worked at the Haven as a support staff, and then I became their kitchen manager. And then I had a lack of boundaries, and I ended up working at USERRA. And it was really cool because I'd always wanted to work there. The whole time I was in treatment, I went, one day I'm going to work there. One day I'm going to work there. Tiffany Nacarado was my coach.
Yeah.
And now she is not just my supervisor, but she is my friend.
Mm-hmm.
She is absolutely my friend. My son loves her. And it's amazing the amount of support that I've been able to build. And and feel full of. I never would have found myself hanging out with women. Like, that was really hard for me because I didn't trust them. I have mommy issues, as you heard. Sure. So trusting women wasn't something I did. But now I have an entire village of women.
Yeah, you do.
I do.
The executive director and everybody, and a ton of people that work at you, Sarah, and you're still there, right?
I am.
And what's your position?
I am part of the Recovery Support Services team. I'm one of the long-term recovery coaches. I am blessed and grateful to get to go into courtroom settings and advocate. I'm using my lived experience to help bridge gaps and helps them see from a different angle. I go to felony drug court and talk about things that are happening within our community. Or if I just see someone who just looks like they're having a bad day, I get to sit with them and inquire why and ask them. And maybe someone's mad before they go before the judge, but because I took that extra 10 minutes to talk to them, they get to go in with a level head, and helping them see light, and that it's not everybody in the world against them, how they're feeling in that moment. Because that's what Tiffany did for me. And I get to do that.
I think most importantly, as I'm hearing your story, your childhood sucked, okay? I mean, to be honest.
Yes,
it's
terrible.
And throughout the whole time that you were having trouble with boundaries and you were looking for love, maybe in all the wrong places, but you didn't feel good about yourself. But it seems like you do feel good about yourself now.
I definitely do. I never felt worthy or loved or enough. And today I do. I get to stand proudly and advocate for my son, which is something that no one ever did for me. But when he's having a hard time or someone's labeling him as aggressive, I get to stand up and say, that's not what we're going to do. We're not going to label my child, because those labels will stick with you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And so I get to do that. I get to be present. I get to watch my son's Halloween parade and throw co-parenting birthdays with his dad and his, and it's been really cool to watch, because I didn't know if I was going to be able to hold those boundaries, but I get to do that today. I get to be here, and I get to be present with you guys.
Triana just spoke at the drug court graduation this last week.
I did, yes.
How did that go?
It went good. I always get nervous.
Yeah.
Even in court, I still stutter all the time. But that's just who I am, and I get to just be my authentic self and show up. So.
And I think you're a great advocate for that. A lot of people, especially in family recovery court, have their children with them, and they're going through these things that you've already gone through, and you can stand up and say, look, I've been through it, and look at where I'm at today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that glimmer in someone's eye when they're like, oh, dang, I could do that, you know? Even when I run into people in felony drug court who I've known for years, and not the good ones, they see me and they ask questions, and I get to stand next to them. So, and it's awesome. It's been such a liberating experience the last 3.5 years, over a little 3.5 years, because I've really gotten to know myself and what I want and what I expect, and what I expect from others as well when it comes to my friendships. Like, I'm not going to let you talk down to me or treat me horribly. And yeah.
When I went through treatment, they kept telling me, they said, you've got to learn to love yourself. And that was the hardest thing I went through. I mean, it's like I never felt worthy of anything that happened to me. And so I drank, and then I'd feel semi-worthy, or I thought I did.
Then you really felt like you loved yourself.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the hardest things. And what you showed, when people do assessments to bring people into programs like, say, Odyssey, they ask about childhood. And they do that childhood risk assessment, and that was not a gunshot. I ducked.
That was great.
But that was, I'll just be honest, we had a little thing out there trying to block the sun on the window, and it was a cardboard piece that fell down and made a noise. So I wonder why I've never been shot at, but it's like, whoa.
I used to duck at fireworks after that whole thing happened.
I'll bet you did.
I did not like the 4th of July at all. Starting to get over that this year.
But what I was saying before somebody shot at me is what happened in childhood is so significant in terms of the rest of your life.
It is.
Even though you don't know it at the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I use that as a lot of excuses too. Like, well, I'm like this because my parents were, or you know,
right.
Yeah.
and all
right.
of those things. But really, it came down to like not knowing how to be loved by my family, and
Therefore,
that made it
not
really-
feeling worthy,
Yeah.
therefore seeking love.
Yeah.
Right?
And then I didn't know how to be loved when I got adopted by Julie.
Yeah.
Like and she went through the ringer with me. Oh man. Like she gave me journals about when I would take off. I took off for like 4.5 months.
Jeez.
Like I put her through a lot. And so when she finally was like, enough's enough, like I was so hateful and resentful towards her for that. However, today I see why. Because my daughter is so bright and so brilliant. I don't get to talk to her, but I get to see pictures of her. And she's on the 4-H club. She does archery. Like, she's a straight A student. Like, she has an immaculate life. And I don't know if I could ever give that to her. So I'm grateful for where she's at. My mom's done a beautiful job with her.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful to at least see it from the sideline.
We are out of time, believe it or not, and thank you for sharing your story, because I think it helps. I think probably loved ones of people in addiction or people in addiction watch these or listen to these podcasts, and so a story like yours really helps, and you can become another Tiffany, what Tiffany was to you, right, to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course.
I'm
Thank you
glad
for
you
having
said
me.
yes, even though we had to twist your arm.
Did you pay her?
No,
Oh.
Tiffany told her, go do it. You should do it too.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
You've been great.
Thank
And
you.
you're doing great work now. And thank you for watching another edition of Odyssey House Journals.